Zoom meeting information. The meeting is now recording. Wonderful. We'll move on to roll call. I am here. Ned.
Present.
Randy.
I am here.
John.
Present.
And Stephanie, it looks like, is not here. Corey, it looks like, is not here. Julia.
Present.
Amy.
Present.
Welcome, Amy. We'll do intros in a second here. And Mark.
Present.
And it looks like, welcome, Corey. We're just doing a roll call. Thanks for joining us. I'll mark you down as here.
Hi, great. I caught that.
And then on to approval of today's agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
By Alder Randy, second by John. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. All righty then. On to approval of the minutes from August 18th, 2021, our last meeting. By Randy, second by Mark with the hand signal. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right. And we will, we have a pretty easy agenda tonight. Nothing on regular business, but we're going to go to informational. We have a new member of the Sustainability Commission. Amy, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. I think we can do an introduction, just have a minute for everybody to go around and talk about their roles in the community, you know, other sustainability projects, things they're involved in. But Amy, would you like to start out by introducing yourself?
Sure. My name is Amy Cox. I currently am the Dean for Trades and Engineering Technologies at NWTC. Previous roles at NWTC included starting up their sustainable agriculture and energy program, solar energy management, some of those. Previous to that, I was a lead certified architect. So have a passion for sustainability and energy conservation, and am really glad to be part of this committee. I also serve on the board for the Wisconsin Energy Workforce Consortium. So there's a nice tie there to the energy work that goes on.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to working with you, and I'll be reaching out to just have a one-on-one to talk about commission stuff in the next. We'll send an email tomorrow probably. I'm just going to call people out on the screen then to introduce themselves. Ned, you are next.
Hi, Amy. I'm Ned Dorff. I teach first and second grade at Aldo Leopold Community School in Green Bay. I guess my kind of areas of passion regarding sustainability are around clean energy and native plantings and pollinators. Yeah, I'm just excited to get things rolling again. I think COVID has things down, but I think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So nice to meet you, Amy.
All right, Randy, you're next on screen.
Randy, City Alder. I'm the city's representative here for the council. I helped get the board, the commission up and running with Seth, Joshua, and just glad to be a part of this. And you guys are really all the brains. I don't know anything. I'm here to help out with the council, and if there's anything the council can do.
Thanks, Randy. I'd add that you're one of the more courageous members of city council, especially after last night's Enbridge discussion. Some really good leadership that you've embodied. So thank you for that. John, you're next.
Hi, Amy. It's good to see you again. I'm John Arndt. I'm the director of the Environmental Management and Business Institute at UW Green Bay and also our Office of Sustainability. On campus, I sit on our B Campus USA committee, so there's a tie-in to the Pollinator group. I'm also on the Clean Energy Work Group for the Sustainability Commission and sit on the board of Steam Engine Green Bay.
All right, Mark.
Hey, Amy, nice to see you again. Been, wow, long time. Anyway, yeah, I'm Mark Walter. I'm with Brown County. I'm in charge of a lot of our resource recovery programs. I mean, that's really what my focus is on, recycling and solid waste management. Yeah, I also sit on the State Council on Recycling, and I'm on the board of the Associated Recyclers of Wisconsin. And on ways to reduce waste and what we can do to stop landfilling things, even though a big part of my job is also to get people to become customers of our landfill. So I tend to, do a lot of working against myself, but, nice to see you again.
All right, Corey.
Hello, I'm Corey Mim. I am the park planner with the city's Parks Department. I work basically in design and development of the parks, greenways, and trails. I'm also a registered landscape architect. And I think for me, when I think sustainability, I think mainly what's important to me is connecting people to the outdoors and nature, and then really just kind of the conservation and preservation of natural areas.
All right, and Julia.
Hi, Amy. My name's Julia Nordyke. I work for the University of Wisconsin Sea Grants Institute, and I love all the things the Sustainability Commission really works on. And I tend, though, to bring more expertise to the water resources area, but yeah, that's kind of me.
Thanks. Melissa, did you want to go too?
Sure. Hi, Amy. My name is Melissa Schmitz. I'm the staff liaison assigned to Sustainability Commission. I'm also the resiliency coordinator for the city. I joined the city about a year ago. It was actually it was last week, October 12th, it was my work anniversary. And so primarily I'm working on some of the items that are brought forward here by the Sustainability Commission, but really a flood resiliency planning for the city of Green Bay, as well as climate action planning. So in two very broad categories. In my background is in environmental science, and I spent the first half of my career in water resources management, and the second half of my career has been in energy management. And we have a great group of people. I don't want to, brag about everybody, but it's been a really good group of people, a very diverse set of expertise and skills. So it really makes it a well-rounded commission.
Cool. Thanks, Melissa. It's incredible. It's been a year since you started. I feel like the time has gone so fast, but also just the amount of work that we've been able to do in a year with you on staff has been great. So thank you. It's also, I think, exactly 3 years since we started meeting. October 2018 was our first meeting. So Amy, I'm Seth Hoffmeister. I'm our chair and have been since Randy and I worked with the group Joshua, like he mentioned, and my the organization in which I work as our deputy director, Wisconsin Conservation Voters, to create this this commission. We've been doing a lot of great work. It's a lot of fun. Lots of really cool projects, great people. I guess the areas I'm most into are that of climate, addressing climate change at the local level. I think we see a lot of great opportunities for a city like Green Bay to really be a statewide and even national leader on addressing climate change. and making that transition to 100% clean energy, carbon neutrality, and all of that. So very excited to continue that work with your expertise. Great, we'll move on to item 2 then. Am I leading this, or am I giving the report on the Clean Energy Work Group update?
It's up to you. I can give a play-by-play too, if you'd prefer.
Yeah, well, I guess why don't you recap yesterday's presentation, John? And
Sure.
then
I got the slide deck in front of me, so it makes it kind of easy.
Cool.
We met with the Common Council last night, and Seth began by reiterating our commitment that the city and the community are looking to be 100% on clean energy or carbon neutral by 2050, if not before. Also reminding the council that we had committed to joining the Wisconsin Local Government Climate Coalition, and that they had supported that, along with that commitment to 100% clean energy. Seth also shared that citywide, we talked about the solar installations at light stations, and talked about that we had set up the Clean Energy Working Group that was focused on trying to get us closer to carbon neutrality. At that point, I jumped in and told them, essentially laid out our process where we as a Clean Energy Working Group began, brought in other volunteers. We brought in help from NWTC, particularly Jenny Brinker and her students, to help bring some of our buildings into the Energy Star portfolio manager as part of monitoring our progress towards carbon neutrality. Also shared with them that we had collected data from the city in a variety of areas, and that process did take a bit of time. But after gathering that, we compiled that data and we began to put it into the EPA local greenhouse tool, which is helping us to determine our carbon footprint. I shared with the Common Council the emissions that we've tracked so far and where we're at, and that happens to be about at 31,293 metric tons of carbon that the city is generating. And this is city operations that we're talking about. After that, I compared our carbon emissions to a few other cities across the nation to see where we're at. I reminded them that we're a little bit late in the game of starting to track our carbon. So it's no surprise that of similar populations, our carbon metric tons of carbon per person for city resident tends to be a little higher in Green Bay than some of the other communities that I identified. I gave them a list of the data that we're still looking for, and we'll need help getting there. And that kind of segued into Melissa finishing it up, talking about some of the next steps that we are going to need to do. And that is working with our utility provider to get additional data. We're going to need to seek funding as we move forward and try to develop a climate action plan. We're going to need to engage with more stakeholders as we want to advance this process. Ultimately, we're going to need to develop mitigation strategies for our climate action plan, continue tracking our progress towards greenhouse gas reduction and ultimately zero. And in the process, maybe also partner with other local communities and even the county perhaps to assist in getting us ultimately by or before 2050 to carbon neutral. And that's the short version.
Awesome. I don't think I really have anything else to add. Melissa, did you, or Ned, do you?
No, that was a very nice recap, John, of last night's presentation. The only other thing I would add as far as, relating to this work group is we discussed it during the last couple of meetings, I believe, and that's starting to prepare language for an RFP for a climate action plan. So I've started doing that. I've set a goal for myself to get it to my director within the next 2 weeks, just because I work well on timelines. And so that's, from a staff perspective and what I'm working on, that's one of the as it relates to the initiative.
Just to piggyback on John's amazing rundown of that. That was really nice, John. He mentioned partnering with other local communities and governments. And so in between our last meeting and this one, we did, so I tend to try to interface with the city and the school district, the Green Bay Public Schools. And John and Jenny are kind of arranging some services to help the school district determine what our carbon output is at that level. So I think that working group is really serving as a resource for more than just city operations now at this point. And it's good to have John that we can turn to for things like that.
And if I can throw this at you guys as well, since you're the work group, from my end of the world of recycling and waste disposal areas, two of the most problematic wastes we're dealing with right now, one is solar panels. In spite of what Eland Electric said about being able to recycle solar panels, there's actually only one company in the state of Wisconsin that can actively recycle some solar panels, but the technology is being developed. The other one is actually wind turbine. From a clean energy standpoint, wind turbine blades are a huge disposal issue because their composite materials are not recyclable, and they also don't break up very well when you try to landfill them. So as you go forward and look at clean energy issues, I look at the end of life of the products that are created and what are we going to do with them, and seeing if there are better solutions or better products that should be put into play in the long run. Because even though they may last 20 or 40 years, at the end of that time, someone has to deal with it. And the best option is for the manufacturer to take responsibility for it, but nonetheless, that's not likely to happen still. Just something to throw out there to keep in the discussion.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We'll move on then to item 3, Pollinator work group updates. Ned, take it away.
We're coming out of dormancy, I suppose. We are looking at cities around the country that have requirements for their municipal operations to use native landscaping on like city-owned land. And it kind of came to mind with an article about Newtown, Connecticut having an ordinance in place for that. So there's a few of us on the Pollinator working group trying to comb through other cities and municipalities to see if anybody else has something like that on the books, so that we might discuss that hopefully next month and maybe come up with a resolution or some kind of ordinance language in the following months. That's what I have for that.
Cool. Any questions for Ned or anything to add re pollinators? All righty then. On to
Sorry, I just have a quick question for Ned regarding that. Ned, that ordinance information, is that for like new development typically, or?
So that would be for like municipally owned land, city, like if we have parkland, obviously DPW land, things like that. And let's say that we're putting in new landscaping. How do we create possibly a native Wisconsin's plants first model versus grabbing something that's exotic to put in, or trees, or ornamental grasses, things like that. You know, how can we encourage that within city operations? So I'm not sure about new development. Are you thinking more for like private development?
No, I was thinking, on city-owned land. I guess I was just curious if it would be kind of involving converting existing parkland, if you're not really doing work already, in that park, or if it's more, okay, we're doing a ball field here, which didn't exist before, and are we going to put native plants around that, kind of, or is it both?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both. I think it's looking at the land we already own and use, and possibly changing out what's there, but maybe waiting until it needs to be upgraded. I feel like maybe we can discuss that more discussion item, but I could see it encompassing new development and going back to kind of retro landscape, old land as well.
Good.
Yeah, John.
I just wanted to weigh in since it relates to the Pollinator group. We had a meeting in early October with some folks from NWTC. They toured UW Green Bay. They were looking at our pollinator gardens and had interest in maybe doing something, which really fits in with, I think, the idea that both UW Green Bay and NWTC / the Green Bay Botanical Garden could be really kind of two hubs as we fill in the city of Green Bay as our pollinator corridor in between. So I'm glad to see that they were interested and that those talks continue.
Yeah, I can add a little bit about that. I sit on the sustainability committee team for NWTC, and really there's a lot of support for creating a pollinator landscape, starting, with a smaller footprint, but really commitment from the top, from the president of the college. And that group is really just trying to figure out what kind of, they've been tasked to figure out what the maintenance costs, what the, to get something established. So really doing the research to make sure that whatever we do, we're able to sustain over time and really provide the right amount of care so that it develops into the habitat we want it to be. So.
Alder Andy.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I was going to actually put this in as a communication, but maybe just talking about it a little bit, and then maybe communication if necessary or whatever. But why doesn't the city, when it needs to plant new grass, terraces or whatever, use no-mow seed? Why don't we go with more no-mow grass areas? I mean, that would cut down, if we can get to the point where we're not mowing, that's a reduction of noise pollution. It's a reduction of carbon in the, pollution. Why is that something that would be, is there a reason why we're not doing that? Is there a reason that, is that something to start looking into?
Do you think we could roll that discussion into like a possible resolution or ordinance talk next in the next couple of months? I feel like that's a great corollary.
Right. Well, and yeah, I think we could maybe do something with it. I don't know if we need an ordinance or something to change policies of public works and park. I think I'm going to start with what the city does, and then hopefully we can encourage the citizenry to follow along. But and then we can start looking at ordinances and things after that. But Corey, do you think, is there you see a problem with whenever the parks reseeds to use no-mow seed instead of seed that needs to be cut? I mean, it seems to me it'd be an easy, I don't know how much that seed costs, but maybe we could always partner with other communities too to, buy in bulk and reduce the price or whatever. I don't know, or I don't know how much seed we buy, how much we get a break on that or whatever, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be some kind of complications as far as maintenance and people needing to learn how to maintain, because you still do need to maintain a no-mow lawn.
Oh, see, I know nothing about that. What do you got to do?
It does need to be trimmed typically at least a couple times a year.
Oh,
I'm not super familiar with maintaining it myself, but have also been told like it can kind of over the winter like mat itself down if it hasn't been mowed before the winter, and then you kind of find areas and pockets where the grass dies out.
so no mow is a misnomer.
Yeah, it's not, there's still maintenance involved.
Ah.
Less maintenance, definitely. I think too, just the use area. So would it, for instance, like along a sidewalk, would the flopping over of the grass cause concerns for pedestrians coming through or snow blowers and things like that? I don't know. But really, I think walkways, the use area, just considering those things, and then just needing to educate people and our staff or whoever on how to maintain it. But I definitely, we have been talking about it more throughout the parks in areas that we're reseeding and looking at it as an option already. So we don't necessarily have like percentage numbers that we're trying to acquire or get to yet, but I think at some point it would be nice to have something like that in place. So
At least burst my bubble. I thought no mow was no mow. That's false advertising. I want to sue.
It's less mow.
Less mow is probably
Well,
better.
okay, call it less mow then. Don't call it no mow. Now I feel stupid.
Well, you learned something new.
I did. That's what I love about this job. Always learning something new.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for the updates. Randy, I was worried you hadn't made a pun yet at this meeting, and I'm glad.
You missed them. They were a little earlier.
Oh, really?
You got to show up on time.
I thought he was going to tell Corey she should probably park the idea of no mow grass to later.
All right. Mark's on the board. Anybody else with any questions or clever remarks?
I was going to say her comments were kind of seedy.
There we go. And he's hitting his stride. Cool. Well, then we'll move on then to Resiliency Coordinator updates. Melissa.
So the no mow discussion is a perfect segue to the update that I have on the no mow May policy that was voted on. So the Director of Public Works here in Green Bay and I have been having discussions on, formalizing that policy and so that it's ready for spring. And we've also been in talks with De Pere, City of De Pere, because they piloted their no mow May last year. And they've learned, they have some lessons learned. I haven't had an in-depth discussion with De Pere yet, but Scott Thorison, who is De Pere's Public Works Director, is actually, he's on our call right now. He's in the meeting and he's listening in. And Scott, I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, so don't, and he's here really because De Pere also has a sustainability commission. And so he's interested in hearing what we talk about as well. So I let him know when our next few meetings are. So if Scott's here, he's here to learn. And then hopefully what our plan is that Green Bay and De Pere will share ideas on their no mow May policy because we don't believe in like reinventing the wheel if something's working someplace else, and collaborate with De Pere on their policy. So that's the update for no mow May. The next update I have is for the Green Infrastructure Initiative. And Amy, just for your knowledge, City of Green Bay has a green infrastructure initiative in place. It started, I think, really mostly with Julia Nordike's influence with the city. And so we're looking at, we recently completed an amendment or a code audit of our municipal code to incorporate green infrastructure language with our stormwater ordinance, as well as our landscaping standards and the noxious weeds and native plantings codes. So where that sits right now is it's still in our law department, and they're reviewing it. We're through with all of our revisions, and so we're really just waiting on a red line version to come out so that we can start holding a public input session. So I don't have a timeline. I have a what I hope it to be, but I don't have a specific timeline yet from the other department. So, and then I already talked about the climate action plan. What else? Ned, do you have any specific questions? You usually have very specific questions on my updates.
Melissa, do you want to talk about the workshop last week?
Yeah, I can bring that up. Sure, no, I can bring that up. There was, we held a staff workshop last week, and we had, I don't know, how many participants did we have, Julia? Was it around 22?
It was, well, staff, you said maybe 23. I think there was 30 people on the call, and there was 8
with the facilitators. So we held a resiliency workshop for staff, and we had about 8 departments represented. It was a virtual workshop, and so UWC Grant and the Nature Conservancy, and basically it's the group of the East River Resiliency Collaborative that's formed. They've been holding these workshops in all of the communities that are along the East River. And so they approached City of Green Bay, and we definitely wanted to participate in that, but we broadened it to the whole city, not just the East River. So we spent 2 hours last week identifying various flood hazards throughout the city, and then the level of concern of those impacts and the types of impacts. So it was really a great exercise, and it you know, we know where a lot of the flooding happens, but to have representative staff from so many different departments, it really gave a different perspective to where some of the flooding happens and what some of the specific flood hazards are. So we're going to continue that with a questionnaire that goes out to all the participants, and then we'll have a final workshop, hopefully sometime in November, to start talking about potential solutions. Julia, that's all I have. If you wanted to add anything else.
Nope, that was a really good summary.
Well, Melissa, since you called me out, I don't have any pointed questions this month, but we do. It kind of dovetails into something you and I are doing in a couple weeks. I think we're doing a meeting with the DNR, another school district kind of city interface for green infrastructure, and looking at what we can do, and kind of school district owned lawn area to boost flood resiliency in some of our neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. I am looking forward to that. Hopefully, maybe with that workshop, give us some good insight into what we should be looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will be. It'll be good to meet the new DNR MS4 person that they recently hired for Green Bay, and he'll be in that meeting. And then to see where we could have potential partnerships with the school district on installing different types of green infrastructure, and in key areas that could potentially alleviate some of the flooding issues. So with that, those are my updates.
Cool.
Sorry, I just a comment regarding your meeting in the future for the school stuff. So if you get to the point where you have questions about like what type would be good at the location to help, like in terms of, I don't know if you already have the resources or capacity even in staff, but to do some modeling or just some GIS modeling or mapping to figure out actually like how much green infrastructure would be wanted at the site and where to put it, just let me know, because we could have a conversation about that in the future.
Thank you. We could probably invite you if we'll see if it works for their calendar. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions for Melissa or just anything else that folks wanted to update the group on?
Something. Just wanted to let you know we are getting close to hiring an AmeriCorps coordinator for the Parks Department, where this person would help to write a grant for an AmeriCorps program, where we would hopefully have 3 years of, at a minimum, of AmeriCorps members working throughout the parks and greenways, mainly working on conservation trail type projects, that sort of thing. So potentially by the next time we meet, we might have that person on board. So it's pretty exciting.
That's congratulations. That is really exciting. How many, like when you write the grant, how many AmeriCorps people are you trying to bring for 3 years?
We don't know yet, and this person is going to help us figure that out. But in discussions we've had with some of the AmeriCorps staff, it sounds like probably at least bringing in 10 people is a good program as far as they're concerned. And so our hope too, though, is that with this program, we'll be able to draw and bring in volunteers to help with these projects as well. So 10 staff members, you know, and then hopefully volunteers as well. It's kind of what we're looking at now, but it could vary depending on once that person gets here and we really start figuring out exactly kind of what our performance measures and things are going to be. So we'll see.
Exciting. Thanks, Corey. Any other updates or do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
By Randy, seconded by John. All right. All those in favor to adjourn, say aye.
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 All
Welcome
those
aboard,
opposed?
Amy.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for the nice welcome, and I'll start working on my puns for the next meeting.